Hello everyone, and thanks so much for all the support with my videos. I'm very grateful to everybody who supports my work through various platforms. Today I want to speak about the triple lock in Ireland. We've seen a huge erosion of Irish neutrality, in particular over the last 20-25 years, with the use of Shannon Airport as a de facto military airbase for US warplanes involved in their missions and illegal invasions and wars in the Middle East, such as Iraq and most recently Israel, supplying arms to Israel as well. And we've seen the Irish government bowing down to the European masters, bowing down to the United States, and doing a lot of work with NATO. Recently we've seen the NATO commander in Europe, Rob Bauer, attending an event in McKee Barracks in Dublin. We've also seen Irish troops being deployed in supporting Ukrainian armed forces, in weapons training, demining, and many more exercises, which is another erosion of Irish neutrality. But politically, this is a huge move in Ireland. We've seen that through Micheal Martin, our current Minister for Defence, stroke Minister for Foreign Affairs, and Leo Varadkar. And this has been going on for many years, but it's been sped up because of what's going on in Ukraine. Now, last year there was a security consultative forum held in Ireland in 3 venues around Ireland, 3 cities in Dublin, Cork and Galway. And this was chaired by a dame of the British Empire, Louise Richardson, which was a complete sham forum. It was readied up, it had a lot of members of the military industrial complex there, many people who were pushing for more militarism, and many NATO representatives also as well were in attendance. And the report was issued a number of months ago, and that said there was no huge aim to get rid of Irish neutrality, because the vast majority of people in Ireland are opposed to giving up our neutrality, despite what's happening on the ground in terms of the patrol of our air skies and seas as well. We can see that with the RAF and all this sort of stuff going on in Ireland that's not being spoken about. But it's also interesting because with the huge erosion of Irish neutrality, this is part of what's been happening with the European Union that I've been highlighting for many years and being very concerned about it, the move towards the European Army. Now, we've seen the triple lock as a vital component of this, because this would mean that Ireland to send more than 12 troops to an overseas foreign mission, it would require a United Nations Security Council mandate, followed by government approval and Dáil approval before more than 12 members of our defence forces are sent overseas on any mission. And this has been, as I said, under huge attack because of the drive towards militarism, the drive towards NATO. And here in Ireland, we've seen that with the moves, as I've said just earlier, regarding what's happening in Ukraine, and the push by people like von der Leyen, Macron, to escalate tensions and the war with the Russian Federation. In the last number of days, Putin has won his election overwhelmingly, and again, there was stuff coming from the West around what was going on to say that it wasn't a free and fair election. There was 4 candidates, I think, involved in this, and the second candidate who came was the Communist Party, so I'm sure the collective West wouldn't be happy with that either. And it was interesting, was people like David Cameron talking about it, who himself is unelected as a foreign secretary in the United Kingdom. So very interesting. But this is the nonsense we're going to be similarly hearing for many, many months to come as the escalated tensions with the Russian Federation. So you can see the triple lock, which is a vital component in this. We've seen Ireland take a huge amount of Ukrainian refugees, being the good boys for Europe, like we always are. patting our head. And as well as that, people like Micheal Martin have been talking about the triple lock and said that it's not fit for purpose. And he also said that dismantling it would require us to respond to crises with more agility. And this has been pushed, as I said, for a few years. Simon Coveney spoke about it back in 2021, 2022, when he was Minister for Foreign Affairs, and started to try and push this. And in the new Irish government, there was no mention of this in the programme for government that was agreed. And if people remember, go back to the inception of the Green Party, one of their conditions of starting was about active military neutrality. So again, they're going against their own principles. But when did they ever have principles? The Green Party, complete and utter unprincipled anti-working class party, which are making a shambles of Ireland. Now this comes in context with European treaties as well. Many treaties we had to vote on a number of times, again explicitly retained the triple lock, such as the Nice 2. We had to vote twice in these referendums, such as Lisbon and Nice. The famous Lisbon Treaty was when Brian Cowan, our Taoiseach at the time, in a hungover interview on RTE, said he didn't read the treaty, and notably it failed, understandably, when you have the Taoiseach of the country that doesn't read the treaty that he's trying to push for. But when does that ever change in Ireland? Because we've seen that recently with the referendums, where we had candidates for European elections, people like Lisa Chambers, speaking about voting no but campaigning for yes. Flip-flopping is order of the day with these people. So as I said, the Nice 2 had a Seville declaration in it, which would require a referendum on any further treaty in the context of our triple lock. Now it is important because they're talking about agility, and they're talking about having to respond to these events worldwide, and we can see what's happening in terms of the growth of the multipolar world. We can see the move away from US hegemony around the world because of the sanctions packages being imposed and the attacks being imposed on these countries by the United States, to a massive extent a huge imperial power. And it's important to take a couple of the misnomers that they're trying to say that it's a great day for our sovereignty if we have a decision over this and we're not reliant on the United Nations Security Council mandate, because currently there's 5 permanent members of the Security Council, and they would argue that one of those countries could decide that our mandate would not be passed, which essentially means that they would be reliant on those countries to veto it. Countries, namely, what they're trying to push is the Russian Federation and China. Now, in fact, only on one occasion, I think, one of those countries have stopped a peacekeeping mission, and that was China back in 1999, and that was a peacekeeping mission that was due to take place to Macedonia, and that was vetoed by China because Macedonia had opened up diplomatic ties with Taiwan. So that's important to note. The Russian Federation, as far as I'm aware, haven't. And we can see a drive towards these big superpowers, and that was the whole inception of the United Nations. If you go back to the League of Nations after the First World War that started, the purpose of that was to prevent superpowers taking over. But again, we saw that happening with Britain and France, who took over big powers. Same happened after the Second World War with the United Nations, where we had to give smaller countries a voice against the bigger superpowers and to stop the bigger rise of these superpowers. But now we're seeing a huge erosion of what the intentions of that was, in particular by many of these imperial powers, such as the United States with their illegal invasions, which weren't passed by the United Nations, of countries in the Middle East, as I said, such as Iraq, and also it flies in the face of international law. So if you take this into consideration, this is what is happening in Ireland now, where we're seeing a huge erosion of our neutrality. We saw that happen in the last number of months with the meetings by Varadkar, who went to meet van der Leyen a number of weeks ago and said it's our war too. He also spoke about his little dog coming up. And Varadkar said it's not our war too. And he also spoke with Macron when Macron was trying to get more, talking about getting boots on the ground in Ukraine. So war is not going according to plan, to their liking, in that region as well. And we've seen Ireland joined up with these so-called Partnership for Peace, rather, sorry, with the NATO. And also we've seen Micheal Martin recently spending time at the Atlantic Council. Now this would have serious ramifications. And if you consider the drive for Irish neutrality, it's interlinked with our drive for Irish independence. It can't be separated, in my view, and I think it's critically important now more than ever to have a policy of active neutrality, and that would, where we could use our voice on the international stage as a colonised country for many years by the British, and we've seen been colonised as well because of neoliberal policies of the European Union and the militarism of the European Union. That would mean that Irish troops would be sent to fight in countries like Ukraine, fight and die on war fields. They could fight and die in North Africa, for instance, on the purpose of a mission for the European Union. And this is what the drive is towards. This is what it is all about. It's not about peacekeeping missions. It's complete nonsense. It's not about control of our sovereignty. It's about copper fastening our neutrality, which the people agreed with as part of the Seville Declaration, which was the Nice II Treaty. So when they're trying to push this narrative towards more war, towards security concerns, towards all this type of stuff, this is what we have to be completely aware of what's really going on behind it. Whose interests do wars serve? They don't serve the interests of ordinary working class people, the ones who are forced to send to those wars to die and be killed in the name of some big imperial power. And Ireland, as I said, as a former colonised country, should know better than most in terms of how important it is to stand up for Irish neutrality and Irish independence. As I said, they're intrinsically interlinked. So again, thanks so much for my support with the videos. Thanks for liking my Facebook page. Press subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like my videos, and please share my videos as well, because it's critically important now more than ever, as we can see a hugely uncertain world, and we can see absolute psychopaths at the helm who are salivating and chomping at the bit to try and drag us into war. People in Ireland, and even people on the so-called opposition benches, such as Cathal Berry and other TDs, who are pushing for more militarism and more war, so more people can die. We should be pushing for peace. We should be pushing for anti-war. Ireland should be standing proudly in the position for diplomacy and using former Minister for Foreign Affairs, people like Frank Aiken, who pushed a nuclear non-proliferation treaty many years ago as well, and spoke so proudly about Irish neutrality as well. So it is crucially important, if you care about your children, if you care about your grandchildren, your sons and daughters, it's crucially important to oppose this and start speaking out about what's going on and the criminal actions by the political classes in Ireland dragging us towards war that we should have no hand, act or part in. So from Dublin, take care, and I'll talk to you all soon. Salam, bye bye.